to do that, and so they got $150,000 you can put into improving that corridor. We can help you with that kind of thing. One of the ladies, I can't remember if it was Kim or Lisa, they alluded to some of the things that I might do that they can't do. Now, I will tell you that all of my area directors, Elmer and all of his colleagues, and these specialists that you see here, they really do guard my back, and I'm probably a little bit more risky than they are. But when you have a need, we won't know that unless you ask us. And it may be far-fetched, but again, you have to ask, you have to apply, and they're going to adhere strictly to the regulations as they should, and as taxpayers you expect us to. But you know, if because I am the political appointee, if you have a need and the regulations don't quite permit, you know, you get a congressman involved, because the congressmen are the ones that vote the rules that we adhere to, the rules that they mandate for us to adhere to. So if you got a need and you know that it's going to derive real benefits for your citizens, but the regulations don't quite permit, you submit that to me, then they know that I'm gonna at least go to the Secretary of Agriculture, I'm gonna go to one of those administrators up there, or I'm gonna go to a congressional member, whoever represent you here, and I'm gonna say, look, here's what the regulations hold me to now. These folks need this. Can you give me some latitude? That's the kind of questions I'm gonna be asking. But as they do, as they adhere to the regulations, I'm gonna adhere to the regulations. And that's why Elmer kind of prefaced his statements a little bit and said that we are, and you would expect us to. You know, we serve at your pleasure. At the end of the day, we're stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. And so you would expect us to do our due diligence as it relates to the dollars. And you would expect us to adhere to the regulations. And oftentimes we'll do that. Every time, for the most cases, we'll do that. We won't find ourselves on the shoulders of the road, if you will. We won't have those opportunities for treating somebody with an advantage and somebody with a disadvantage if we adhere to the regulations, right? So to the degree we can, we try to stick close to the regulations. But again, when they get really concerned about whether it's something we should be going forward with, then they're going to submit it to the program directors up there. And I'm involved with the program directors. We're going to have those discussions. And if it's something that I'm a little skittish of, then I'm going to be calling an administrator, or I'm going to be calling to the Secretary's office and say, look, the need is there. Can we have a little latitude to make this happen? So again, I'm just trying to say to you, if you have a need, don't be afraid to submit it to us and let us just see. We'll beat it and cram it around, and if we can do it, we're going to do it if it's going to benefit your citizens out here in Duplin County. One of the things that I just want to mention, three things that we didn't mention as a part of what we can do. If somebody's got an entrepreneurial spirit, they're interested in doing a daycare, we can finance daycares under the Community Facility Loan Grant Program. Or if you're doing it for profit, you can do it under the Business and Industry Programs. Another thing is an adult daycare facility. If you have a need here in the area for an adult daycare facility for your senior citizens, we can do that kind of thing. If you have a nursing home need, we can finance nursing homes. So again, basically anything you would need in rural Duplin County, we tend to think that we can help you with it if all else is as it should be. So with that, I'll stop and I'll try to, between the four of us, we'll try to field whatever questions you may have. Again, thanks for having us down here. So Cam said he can make whatever happen, so now I think there's no questions.
Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask the panel directly? I can pass this microphone. They've got another microphone up here, and they can answer. We can have a dialogue back and forth if you guys would like. Yes, Ms. Couch.
Just one of the things, I mentioned it to you earlier, but one of the things that's really important is that if a grant and a loan doesn't get through the first time, that means maybe they weren't able to fit it in. As Lisa was mentioning, as Kim was mentioning, what I just want to say is, if a loan or a grant does not get through the first time, or you know, some of you have had experience where you applied for something 20 years ago and gee, you didn't get through, and so you said, well, these people can't help us. And one of the things you really have to understand is that they try to help you at that time, but maybe the funding just doesn't work that way. The But 2 years down the road, or as Kim was saying, I'm working on that, I'm trying to get it together. Don't not apply again, or don't try again, or try a different area, or try a different avenue. Think about a smaller piece, or a smaller part, or speak to Kim directly. That's the key. A lot of times, like I said, people think, well, gee, it didn't go through, or, I tried to get these, lights for this and it didn't work, or I wasn't able to get that, so there maybe at that time, yes. But under a different administration, or at a different budget year, or, somehow or another, they can work it again. So keep applying, or just, like I said, send Kim a note once every 6 months. Hey, we're still here, any word, any chance that this can go through. And I think that's the biggest thing that y'all need to know about the USDA. They are our public servants. They're here to help us and elevate us. And we in Wallace don't need a hand out. We just need a hand up in some areas, okay?
Let me just follow up on that. That is true because when we come up to the end of the year, September the 30th, we do run out of money. But the next day, we have money back, so do keep applying. The other thing is that if you submit an application, if you get turned down this year, come back again in 6 months, come back again in the year. Once again, we'll do everything we can to help you. And we want to give the impression that, we want you to understand that we are going to do everything we can to help. But we are limited by the cycles in which we get money, okay?
Thank you, Elmer. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm Willie Brinson from Kenansville. In Kenansville, we have a significant number of vacant houses. A lot of them are in need of repair before they can be reoccupied. Rather than the town proceeding with condemnation, which loses tax base, do you have a program to help either a nonprofit organization or private developers buy and restore these old houses? And I'm talking houses that are maybe 40 years to 70 years old.
Mr. Brinson, have you ever heard of CDBG, Community Development Block Grant?
Oh yeah, I've written those grants before.
Okay. Per se, we do not have a program that way unless we got individuals that actually own a house. But if you can apply to CDBG, they may be to go in there and restore, 10 or 12 houses at one time, depending on how the grant is written.
Another question is, RBEG, and I've participated in that program also, but they were always for local governments. Can nonprofits apply for RBEG?
Yes, sir. That is the Rural Business Enterprise Grant, by the way. We like to shorten it, call it RBEG.
Thank you, Willie. Thank you.
If you had somebody was going to make an investment in those properties you were talking about, say if you got 20 vacant properties and they wanted to purchase 12 of them, and if they were fairly close in proximity, then you might could come to our 515 multi-family housing program, and we could treat it pretty much like an apartment. Well, it has apartment buildings, it would be under the 515 program then. Multi-family housing would be multi-family housing purposes, multi-family. But as Elmer was saying, we don't have any 502 or 504. Let's just say where a person's going to put $60,000 into a house, and then they're going to put $20,000 in refurbishing a house, getting it and getting it up to speed, new HVAC system and all that stuff, and then they're going to lease it, just an individual home. We wouldn't have that kind of program.
Any other questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
I'm Stephanie with James Fronts, and what about workforce development funding? I work in continuing ed, and my primary job function is to get our workforce educated and current on needs assessments for business and industry. Is there funding available to help them?
We have a program, we call it RCDI, Rural Community Development Initiative Grant. And so you can write for that grant. It's very competitive, and send the applications to our state office. We in turn send them to the national office. They generally cap out at about $250,000, and some of those monies or funds can be used for that purpose.
Thank you so much.
Oftentimes they're used, let's just say you got, one time, the North Carolina Rural Center wrote to us for one of those grants, and they did about $250,000, and they determined 5 different towns that were struggling. They did $50,000 each to those towns so that they could do things for folk around there and creating opportunities. I remember one of them being Baby, which again is in Stanley County, and I remember because it was in my area at the time. Another one was Star, which was in Montgomery County, and there were like 3 others that benefited from that, about $50,000 each from a $250,000 RCDI grant. Rural Community Initiative, Rural Community Development Initiative grant.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for the panel? Don't be shy. This is all about making us better. Yes, sir. Here,
Mr.
Charlie.
Boar,
Randy,
Randy, I'm Charlie Ferry from Wallace. Can you tell me how much money is appropriated to RBEG each year and how competitive those grant applications are?
well, generally we get about, in the past we would get about 1.4 million. This year I think it was just about $900,000. And what I generally do is I give $100,000 per area. So, and then I keep 3,000. I kept 300,000 in the state office for discretionary purposes. And so generally we tell the area directors, you can do a $75,000 grant, or you can do a $75,000 plus a 25, or you can do a 50-50, or you can do a 35-65, however you want to use your $100,000. But sometimes the dollars that I'm holding on to, if they got one that absolutely can't go without the money that they need, I may do a 75, and then I may tell Elmer that, look, I got another 25 that I can do with your other 25, so it's 50. But generally it's capped out at about 75,000. And some of the ones that I'm doing, I'm holding back for the larger projects, and I'll try to go to about 150,000. This year we got 17 applications, 2 of which were just not eligible for the purpose. Because with RBEGs, it's for small and emerging businesses, and you can't earn more than $1 million in revenue for the first full year of operation, and you can't employ more than 50 people. So it's got to be a small and emerging business, and there were 2 of the 17 that were just outright ineligible for the program. We were able to finance 13 from our dollars, and we sent 2 to the national office of funding. So we try to make it go the distance. And again, let's just say if you had water that was in Wallace, and you were trying to attract a business that was 1.5 miles, or a mile, or a quarter of a mile, and you need to extend water and or you need to treat their affluents, whatever, the sewer or whatever, and you need to send that line down there, you can use that RBEG dollars to do that kind of thing, coupled with what other CDBG funds or other dollars that you might have that you could make that happen with. And again, in Oakboro, I'd get it by, literally in Oakboro, if you were walking along the sidewalk, if you were blind, or if you were elderly, or if you were in a wheelchair, you might have risers like this in the concrete. So we replaced the whole sidewalks, we put in new lamps along, and we put in big planters. And so they spruced up the whole downtown area, and then the banks open, beauty salons open, the eating establishments reopened, and so it's like a shot in the arm for that community. And now they're able to, as Julie said, you know, here's what I know. And if the Secretary of Agriculture was here, he would tell you this. And this is what I believe, because I'm a rural citizen. And some of you know this already. While rural America is made up 16% of the people in America are in rural settings. you go to the armed forces, it's about 43% of the people that's in the armed forces come from rural areas. That tells you something about rural citizens. You guys are not here asking for any handouts. You just want an opportunity to situate yourself so that you can care for the citizens of Duplin County. And that's what we're trying to do every day with the dollars that we invest.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, we.
This is just a follow-up on the RBIG. I know of 3 times it's been used in Duplin County, most recently to help with the town of Keene put sewer out to the bypass to serve the hospice care center. It was also used to actually make, indirectly it was made to help with a direct loan for a business in Warsaw, Computer World. Ken, you may remember that was some years ago. And then at the state level, the rail spur at West Park, Industrial Park at Warsaw, was predominantly paid for by an RBIG that the state used some of their state money of $300,000 to help with that project. So that was done, and Larry Godwin was state director.
I was back in the day.
Yeah, that was some years ago.
You heard Elma and Kim kind of allude to it, and I was talking with Kim earlier today. I think just in recent years they've invested about $60 million here in Duplin County, but there's a quite competitive spirit across North Carolina among the specialists and among the area directors, and so they're always competing for the dollars. I mean, Congress appropriate X number of dollars to us, and Kim really does, and I'm not saying it because she's here, and I'm not saying it because Elma's here. They really do work like you just wouldn't believe, trying to get those dollars to the citizens within their areas. And so that's one of the ways that, and I'll tell you this, we lead the country as a state with dollars requisitioned to help North Carolina. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, because as you would imagine, we do have critics that say that perhaps the government's too big and you shouldn't be trying to get all those dollars, and you should move away from some of that. But I'll be honest with you, we make no apologies for what we've been able to do. We're going to continue to do so.
There's a question over here too about organizations such as Habitat for Humanity or small community organizations. There's a question whether are they able to apply for loans and grants.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I thought so, but if you could kind of elaborate on that. So groups like Habitat for Community, Red Cross, and some of the things that the Red Cross does, but maybe you need some assistance on a special project or a special something for our community. So
Yeah.
how would they go about doing something like that?
Yeah, when I was area director, I was responsible for Richmond County, and they're in Richmond County and Hamlet area. We financed a Butler building, if you will. Actually, it wasn't a Butler building; it was an old building that had outlived its usefulness, and so the Habitat for Humanity converted it and upfitted it, and now they gather all kinds of things: clothing, refrigerators, stoves, whatever. And so you donate that stuff to them, then they in turn sell it for a small profit, and then they use the dollars to help folk that need a 850 or 1,000 square foot house. Maybe not. Well, you know the houses that Habitat for Humanity build, and probably with all the work that is going into it, a 1,000 square foot house. With all the labor being free for the most part, they're probably going to put it on the ground for $75,000 or $80,000. But they use those dollars from the refrigerators and stoves and other things that they sell. They use that for purchasing the material and so forth. So we're able to help them to get that building and get it ready so they can collect things from citizens from several counties around Richmond County.
And then also for that low-income housing person, you would be able to assist, and you would want these types of services to help them get that mortgage or to get that loan on the house that you built. One of our greatest success stories is sitting right here, I don't think if anybody knows, is Lynn Hurley with Carolina East. Maybe you could explain how they took your vision of creating a world-class home care and hospice service helped you?
Kim Miller could go into great detail with that because she was our specialist with that. And in 2007, I think it was, when we started that project, that we felt that our community wanted, they had voiced the need that they wanted a hospice care center, and so indeed, we went to USDA and said, is this possible? And I don't think at that time USDA had ever done a hospice care center, but they have done it in other parts of the state, and we were the lead for that as well. But in 2009, we opened our 6-bed hospice care center, and we hope that nobody in this room or any of your families ever need that service, but we want you to know that it is available for use, and that many people have used it over the last 5 years. We were 5 years old in February with that. In addition to that, we turned around. It was such a, USDA came back and said, we like these projects, and we think you need an office building. And many people said to us in the beginning with home care, because we were in the basement of the hospital at the time, and they said, don't you think you need an office building? And we said, yeah, we do need an office building. They said, well, why don't you build that first? And we said, because our community does not care where we come from. That's not what's important, because our services are in the home. What's important is that hospice care center, so that's why it was done first. But we went back to USDA, and again, they gave us a loan and grant funds, just as they did with the hospice care center, to build our, we call it home care and supports building, because we don't want it to be an administrative building, because it's the people that provide the services in the homes. And so that's in that same on that same campus. And if you've not been to it, we would love to see you. It is a beautiful campus, and the services that are provided in that center is great. And we think the services that we provide in home health and hospice and community alternative programs, case management, is great services as well. Thank you.
Any other questions for the panel, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, ma'am.
I don't like microphones either. I did want to ask a question. You said about childcare earlier, and my question is, if it's an existing childcare and they needed to expand to provide after-school care, is funding available for that type of situation?
Well, first, is it a public body or nonprofit, or is it a for-profit business?
Well, there are a few nonprofits, and then there are some privately owned.
Yeah, there's definitely money available. We speak very generally on these things today because it all comes down to, we're going to have to look at the organization, we're going to look at repayment ability and what the needs are. And for a daycare, for an existing business, it's much more, honestly, more attractive to us than a startup, because they've been successfully operating. So yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
All right, and I wanted to ask one other question as well. Several years ago here in Midland County, we had a strategic planning session that probably, I'd say 50 to 75 people were actively involved in. And one of the things that was identified that we need here in this county is a public pool. We only have 2 pools available in Midland County, and they're both privately owned. You have to have a tremendous dollar amount to be a member. And we were talking about after-school programs for teenagers. Is that a possibility for any park or recreation department or anybody?
Recreation is one thing under community facilities we can't do. But let me tell you, and this is one thing we kind of talk with a forked tongue, because I'm going to say I can't do swimming pools. But let me tell you this, if you build a school, and I've got a school talking to me now in another county that's part of their athletic facilities, that can be considered, because that's not recreational. So unfortunately, just to do a park kind of thing, we can't do. Is there any?
I would just say that if you're building like a community building, if you're building a community building and you're going to have some after-school tutorial programs, computer training and so forth, and oh, by the way, that swimming pool is secondary to this overall, then we can do that. That's when I tell you we're going to try to look for ways to make things happen. But as Kim was saying, if it's for the sole purpose of a recreational type facility, a swimming pool being included, we can't do that.
one of the ways to cut down on crime and cut down on, drug abuse and all these other things is to give these kids something to do.
Absolutely.
Something constructive to do, and tutoring and all these other things that would go with after-school programs.
And we'd love to be a part of that.
Would a Boys and Girls Club type program be acceptable that we could bring to our area? And the reason why I ask that question is, very simply, we have a lot of kids who are at risk. We all understand that here in our community. I see it every day. I know you guys see it every day. But we also have a lot of great kids here too. And, one of my concerns, I don't know if you guys know this, but Rose Hill High School won the 1A state soccer championship. Kenansville, James Keenan won the 1A state football championship. But Dr. Boar, the head coach of the soccer program here in Wallace, doesn't have a field to practice on. Okay, that's a major concern for us to keep our athletics going as a whole, because it does bring a unifying factor to all of our community, because we all rally around those sports and those kids, and they feel so special at that moment. We want to keep that specialness going. So with a Boys and Girls Club, with a community center, with an additional play sports complex, would that be acceptable grant that we could go after?
That's right along the lines of a YMCA. We can finance YMCA's.
Excellent. There we go. Any questions? Any other suggestions that you would have to help us out of those hurdles that we're going through right now besides a Y? Is there another opportunity also? I mean, a Y would be great, but our county is so spread out. So one Y, where would it fit in our county to help everybody? Yeah.
The only thing I would suggest, if I was suggesting anything, and I'm sure Kim and Elma would echo this, is that, and you and I talked about this earlier, dealing with the county commissioners, the fathers and the mothers of the county, those leaders, if you will, the economic development commissioners. We like to see a holistic approach. We don't like to see this hit or miss type thing. And so we would just want to make sure that that everybody's on board for the most part, and everybody's moving in the same direction, because ultimately we don't want to be spending taxpayers' dollars on something that's going to be criticized even by some of the people that are local to the problem. I mean, it's like that old saying, what might make you fat might kill me. And so we want to make sure that everybody's going to be well pleased that we're going to be spending their dollars for whatever you see as a real need. We'd like to know that the majority of the people are on board with it. And in fact, a lot of times we have to have public notifications, right? And so you might as well get that buy-in on the front end rather than getting some investment for some of the studies that you might need paid for, and then get out there and have to do that and be met with all kind of controversy. So yeah, I'd just make sure you got some buy-in on the front end.
Any other questions for the panel, ladies and gentlemen? That was a great one. We got to the bottom of something. That was good. Any other questions? Ladies and gentlemen, I can't thank our panel enough. I can't thank Julie Couch enough, and more importantly, I can't thank you guys enough. I did a count today. We had 71 attendees in this room here today. Okay, 71. Our original goal was 25 to 50, and we got to 71. We actually had over 83 reservations, but when I went to make some copies, I found out a couple people why they couldn't make it, just different emergencies that came up during business. We're all running lean and mean right now, so I understand this was a big commitment for you guys to make on a Friday afternoon, and we can't thank you enough for being here. We're always striving to make Wallace, Duplin County, all of Duplin County, a better place to live, and you guys are a major driving force in that. So again, give yourself a round of applause here today for being here.
I can tell already that Cam is quite a modest guy, so let me, on behalf of me and my staff, thank Julie and Cam for arranging this as well. This is the kind of thing that we find ourselves doing. It does require some legwork, and so for them to show a willingness to pull all this together, we just want to say thank you guys for making it happen. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, of course, they had a couple documents here for us today. I was able to go to the office and make about 25 more copies. There's 35 copies for 71 people right here. I know that math does not work. I'm a pretty intelligent guy. But what I do have is all of your emails, and I've already scanned all of this in a nice PDF format. So I'm going to send each of you the video of today's session, as well as the PDF explaining all their programs as well. So that'll be all sent to your email next week. Please keep an eye on it. It'll come from cmclemore@riverlanding.com. So make sure that I'm not in your spam folder or anything like that. And don't worry, I'm not going to send it by punch bowl or anything like that anymore. It'll just come straight from me. So I'll also send it to all the chambers. So chambers, if you will distribute that accordingly, and mayors of your towns and town managers that are here today, if you'll also do that. Again, we're just trying to make this a better place. We have so many great organizations here represented, and again, we can't thank you enough for being here. We thank the Murphy family for allowing us to do this and provide this great venue for us to have it. And again, thank you for working with us in the change in venue, but the change in venue really worked to our benefit because we almost filled up our whole room. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your attendance today. We'll be around for a couple more minutes to answer any additional questions that you may have. My cards are out front. If you want to ask me a question that I can relay back to the panel, I'll be more than happy to do that for you as well. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you for being the leaders here in Duplin County.
How you doing, Miss Man? I'm fine. Good to see you. You doing all right? Everything man? Is it country? You know,
There's nothing, I don't, there's nothing that says, I mean, the lot for sale. If you go run home, you can sell a lot, his lot for sale. And the people, I mean, it's just people that love lots. I think all the minimum that is a subdivision, and it's just like in River Lake. It's like you and then rent it. You have no way But I guess he was well. But he had yeah, if he comes in there and see, he's gonna have to request an extension to the existing water main because there's gonna be individual meters on that. He's not gonna give them adequate meter. But if you go back to the road, and yes, okay, that's the above all. It is a
I'm just a mom.
But I